Hello and welcome to the You Know How to Live show. My name is Kate Hammer, and in just a moment, we will have Sophia Benoit with us. Sophia's new memoir, Well, This Is Exhausting, was named a Best Book of the Month by Vogue, Good Morning America, Fortune, Goodreads, and more. Benoit is a writer and comedian who grew up in Missouri and was correctly voted most likely to never come back. She writes sex and relationship advice for GQ and Bustle and has had bylines in Allure, Refinery 29, The Cut, The Guardian, and more. Now, wherever you are listening or watching from, I am so glad that you are tuned in and hanging out right now. I hope you are ready for my favorite combination of things, hopefully a bit of entertainment, and of course, some takeaways to improve how you work and play and do all the things you do in between. Please take a moment right now to subscribe, follow, leave a comment, give a 5-star review so that we can stay connected. And with that, let's bring in Sophia Benoit.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you could be here. I'm
Thank
especially looking forward to talking to you because when I was reading your book, While This Is Exhausting, I was pretty much cracking up the entire time. For anyone who doesn't know this already, you can also catch it on Audible if you are a listener. And that's what I did. So Sophia actually reads the book aloud, which makes it 10 million times better. So it feels like just like a conversation with friends, like, oh my goodness, you guys, this time when I was 8 years old, blah, blah, blah. It was hilarious, whatever. So I was listening to this book on my trip down to Rhode Island for a conference. If you have a road trip coming up or you're heading to the beach for vacation, whatever, get the audio. Otherwise, pick it up in print. It's super, super funny. So, Sophia, you wrote a memoir. You've been a writer for a long time, but before you wrote this book, what kind of writing have you been doing?
So I started writing for film and TV in undergrad, and I did like stand-up comedy and I kind of did more comedy stuff. And then I
Mhm.
graduated and I needed to get a job. And so I started writing for magazines and I wrote for The Guardian and I wrote for GQ, who I still write for. But I started writing for magazines because it's fun and I love magazines and I've always been obsessed with magazines. I like still have print subscriptions that come to my house, like
Yes.
stacks. I love them. So, but also because that paid, rather than film stuff, which is like hard to start and get into. But I
Mhm.
kind of always knew I wanted to write a book because I love books and I try to read 50 books a year. And so I am a massive book lover, massive book fan, and I
Yeah.
always knew I wanted to write one, but I started in magazines basically.
Okay, cool. So you always knew you wanted to write a book. Did you always have a sense that it would be a memoir?
I think yes, because I mean, I love fiction and I'm hoping to eventually write a fictional book, but
Ooh.
I think I had this idea that, um, I really loved these really funny memoirs by women, and a lot of
Mhm.
them were, either by comedians or just, like, celebrities, like Tina Fey and Amy Poehler had these really funny memoirs,
Yeah.
but I felt like for some people, either they were famous people or it was, like, people that had these crazy lives and crazy stories, and, like, I don't have that life, I'm never gonna have that life, like, I can't, there's no way, and so I just felt like I had less to say at first, and so that was a worry for me because
Yeah.
I felt like my life wasn't as, like, fun and wild, and so I talked to a friend about it one time, and they were like, "Well, why don't you write about that? About feeling like you've
Mhm.
always kinda done, like, the good thing, the right thing."
Well, for that reason, it absolutely resonated with me. I feel like I've been a rule follower from day one, but that doesn't mean that you don't think about certain things. Like your thought life can be pretty interesting, even if you're not out there like doing craziness, right? Um,
Totally.
yeah, and I love how you get into that. When you wrote it, it's a made up of a collection of essays.
Mhm.
How did you decide order? Like you could obviously do it in order by date. You could tell like your craziest stories on either end. Like how did you decide to format this thing?
So I tried to do it loosely chronologically because I
Mhm.
wanted people to get the sense of how much my childhood as a really, like, well-behaved kid who was also overweight and struggling with that, but who was also, like, had this very rich fantasy life of,
Yeah.
I want to be this, like, cool woman in New York on the go and, like,
Yeah.
you
I
know, like,
love those parts, by
Logan
the way.
Singer, like, Devil Wears Prada, like, I really thought that was gonna be me. So I had this, like, very rich fantasy life, but I was very internal as a kid. I was, like, a loner a lot and
Mhm.
a huge reader and all this stuff, so I wanted people to get that sense first before they got to the point where I went to college and tried to become this, like, chill girl who got along with the
Oh,
guys and was always, agreed with
yep.
everything any guy said and, like, tried to be likable to men, and then I wanted them to have that journey into, like, eventually now where I feel like I'm not perfect at it, no one is, but I feel like I'm better at being like, I don't need everyone to like me, like, my job is to like what I do and like myself,
Yeah.
make my choices, and not, like, make sure everyone thinks I'm great, you know? So, I wanted that, like, that arc of my own to go from, like, "Who are you being good for?" to come across.
Oh, that is such a great question. That's like a Post-it note question that people should just put on their bathroom mirrors and computers. Well, how did you phrase it? Who are
Who
you
are you
being good for?
Yeah, like, who's
Yeah.
the person that you think you're, like, behaving for? Because like, if you're if you think you're behaving, whose version of good behavior are you matching up to? Because like, one of my
Yeah.
first boyfriend, like, his family was really conservative, and he was very conservative about, like, traditional values and roles that women should play that I didn't buy into or believe, and so he often thought I wasn't behaving, but, like, I was behaving according to my own standards of, like, who I wanted to be, you know? So it's just,
Yeah.
who are you behaving for, basically?
Absolutely. Yeah. When you're a teenager, I mean, all throughout your life, you know what you're exposed to. And if what you're exposed to is, a very certain type of person or personality or, belief system, then that's what you know. So that's what you go off of. But okay, if you could go back in time and tap 15-year-old Sophia on the shoulder, what might you say to her?
I feel like I'm one of those people that, like, when they ask you, "Would you go back and relive high school, middle school, all that?" Even
Uh-huh.
though I was, like, so overweight and I didn't have, like, the life I thought that I wanted to have or all these things, I would do it again in a heartbeat because I have so much compassion for my younger selves. I'm like, "Oh, you sweet little angel, you're doing your best," you know? Like,
Yeah.
what can you do? So I feel like I don't know that I have that much to teach her because 'cause I'm just in a different place now. Like, I think what she did was probably right for her. If I would say anything, I'd probably be like, "Relax," but
Mhm.
I'm not even relaxed now, so it would be so hypocritical, you know? I mean, and I don't know if it would help, but I'd probably be like, "Just calm down. It's gonna work out. You're 15. You have nothing to worry about." You know?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, because everything that happens, like, every hour of the day feels like the most dramatic, consequential
Yes.
moment possible.
Yes.
Yeah. And it is so funny in retrospect to have that realization of like, "Oh, it doesn't matter that, like, Beth so and so said such and such a thing about me in 3rd period. No one will ever remember."
No one's gonna ever remember, and these people are not gonna be in your life forever, like, it's gonna change dramatically, so it's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, as you were going about the process of writing these essays, did you know at that point that you were writing this book, or are these things that you had started processing through on paper previously?
I started with the idea of a book, and I kinda started too early because I was like, "I want to write a book," and that's not necessarily, like, the best. You wanna have something to say first, right? Like, you
Mhm.
don't necessarily wanna just write with nothing to say. And I think I was so caught up early in my 20s about being like, "I wanna have a book." And it wasn't like, "I wanna write this, or I wanna say this." It was just like, "I wanna write a book."
Yeah.
So, in the beginning of this process, I wrote things that, like, didn't really line up with having something to say. They were kind of
Mhm.
just these, like, nebulous essays that didn't really go anywhere, didn't have anything that they were teaching or saying or lessons learned. But eventually I like took a couple years off from writing it and came back and realized what I wanted to say and realized what I wanted to talk about and how I wanted to talk about, again, the pressures as a woman to behave and to do certain things and the pressures to, again, do the right thing for certain people and how you
Mhm.
kind of can't win no matter what as a woman because you're kind of always, if you do, if you don't, like no matter what,
Mhm.
there's someone who's upset with how you're behaving if
Yeah.
you behave for other people. So again, I figured it out and came back, but these essays were just for the book. There was almost nothing that really came from other places. I just had to write it all.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing you were just talking about in terms of how you're behaving specifically for guys, man, like, I feel like so many people can relate to, yes, the behavior in the moment, like how you conduct yourself, but also just like create, like, just personality creation, like what music you listen to, what you're into with hobbies, whatever. Do you recall specifically, like, any aspects of personality creation back in that time?
Oh my god. I think all of my personality at that time was like it was just like as if 20-year-old guys, like, molded a woman. Like, I
Yeah. Oh
and
my
there were
god.
things that I really like doing. Like, I got really good at beer pong because I lived with guys, and I didn't even drink, but I would, like we would, like, make it with water, and then I would have, like like, everyone else
Yeah.
would drink or drink for me or whatever. But I got really into it and very good at it, and now as like, an adult, I love it, and I think it's a fun game, but I'm like, that came about because I was trying to impress men, and there's, like,
Mhm.
so much of my music taste that you mentioned from that time period. I even, like, read a book because a guy mentioned it when we were talking on Tinder, and we had been talking for a long time, and we hadn't even met up, and he was like, "You should read this book," and then I read an entire book that wasn't even that good of a book, and I read this entire book because I was like, "Oh, this guy said I should read it." And so
Oh,
it was, like, all these
yeah.
things where it was like, what are you like, I look back and I'm like, "What are you doing?" Like, first of all, that's a waste of time, but also no guy was like, "Oh, you learned all the words to, like, these songs on my favorite album. Can't
No.
wait to date you." Like, no one
Yeah.
was waiting for that, you know? Like, it didn't even work in the sense that I thought it would, you know? It doesn't even give
Yeah.
you the approval that you think you're gonna get from it, you know?
But we're just trying. We're, like, grasping at straws, like, "I would like you to pay attention to me, and I have no idea how to do that. So what albums do you listen to?" Like, what
Exactly.
let's create a point of connection, us, who we probably won't ever date, actually.
Yes, but
Yeah.
I think a huge reason for that is that I do think there's this, like, huge undervaluing of female friendship from men, and they're taught to. I don't think it's, like, inherent to men that
Yeah.
they, like, don't value female friendship, but
Mhm.
so I think, like, one of the only ways we can get, attention or value from men is, like, romantically, and
Mhm.
so I feel like there's a huge pressure, especially for young women, to say, "I will buy into what men like and what men care about and all these things," so that they can even just get noticed by men, which has
Yeah.
a lot of value because it's like, those are your not only is that the other half of, whatever environment you're in, but often they're in roles of power and positions of power, and they have, like, a
Mhm.
lot of say, even just social status at that age is, like, huge,
Mhm.
so goes around men. So I think as much as I, like, make fun of myself for doing those things, they also the reason all of us do them to some extent, or not all of us, but a lot of us do that, is that
Pretty common, yeah.
yeah, it does serve us to some extent when and it's sad that it does, but it's just because there's, like, no one's like, "Oh, it's so cool to love a boy band," you know? Like, one's
No.
like, "It's so cool to, like, straighten your hair or curl your hair and talk about it." Like, everyone makes fun of women for talking about that, but that's not any different than talking about who's on, like, the Sixers lineup this year.
Yeah.
It's no
How
different.
deep is the bench, Sophia?
It's,
Yeah, I
not
wanna know.
there's so much drama going on with the Sixers now.
Oh my gosh.
There's so much basketball drama happening. Now I love basketball, but I did start watching in college a little bit, like, because all the guys around me watched it, and now I love it. I love sports, but
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, let's take what we wanna take and not take it all.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, that's why I can't watch football. I'm like, I watch basketball for me, and I tried to watch football for men, but it didn't work. That one doesn't work for me. I can't do
Yeah.
it.
It's a long you really have to make a commitment,
Yeah,
especially if you're there in person. It's like, "Okay, full half day experience. Are
yeah,
we ready?"
yes, exactly.
Yes. Okay. All right. So you're writing about all of these moments from adolescence into adulthood. How did you actually get it done? Because I think sometimes we imagine the writer either sequestered in the woods with an actual typewriter or like beachside looking out into the ocean and just feeling the inspiration come through. Like, how did this actually look for you?
So I have taught a couple writing workshops, and I'm a huge believer in the idea that writing's a job just like any other job where it's like you have
Mm,
to sit down and show up.
mhm.
And this is a little bit crass, which if you get the book, you're gonna you're gonna get a lot of crass. So
Yeah.
dare you. But I've always told people that like writing is not like taking a it's like building a house. You don't wait until you feel like you need to do it. You don't like, you can't just wait to be like, "Oh, yeah, I feel like I need to write now," because that's never gonna come, never. You
This
have
is
to.
hilarious. So you made this up, right? Because I've certainly
Yes,
never heard this one before.
yes, this is, like, all my weird brain, but
Sophia original, you guys. Also for a Post-it. Write it down.
but seriously, like, you're never gonna, like, feel like, "Oh, it's time to write," like, I mean, you might have, like, an exciting idea that makes you feel, like, ready to go one day, but
Yeah.
that's not gonna sustain you. The same way, like, if you wanted to build a house, you're not gonna be like, "I'm gonna have inspiration to build the house."
Hmm.
Like, you might have a cool idea, you might be like, "Oh, what if we did the kitchen over here?" But that's not gonna sustain you through actually building a whole house. So, again, I think it's a lot of showing up, doing the work, even when you don't like it. But also, I'm a huge believer in not giving yourself another option. Like, I don't,
Ah.
I just don't. My mom used to say this about things where it's like, you just don't give yourself the option. It's like, do you put underwear on in the morning? Yeah, you just put it on. Like, that's what you just do. And the same thing is
Mhm.
like, you go sit down at your desk and write. It's not like, oh, I could also do these things today. That's like not even on the table. It's just like,
Gotcha.
there's no other out, there's no other thing, it's just, I'm writing today, you
This
know?
yes, absolutely, because it's the choices that kill us, right? Like, should I go to the gym this morning?" Like, once you've asked the question, it's dead in the water, like, you're
Yeah,
not going to the gym.
yes,
So, same with writing, right? Like, you
yes,
don't even entertain the possibility of not. Is that what you're
yes, like,
saying?
I'm just
Mhm.
and, like, some days you're not gonna get much done, like, that's just, like, how writing works, and I think that's true for, like, a lot of jobs, like, you're all of a sudden, like, your kid's throwing up or, like, your dog gets sick or something,
Mhm.
like, there's days that it doesn't work, there's also just days where it's like, I have anxiety, I've had depression before, like, there's days that your brain doesn't play along with that,
Yeah.
but when you I mean, and so allow for those days, obviously, but, when you do have a day where you're, like, in a good place to be working, then you have to show up and do the work, there's no other option. You can't make it a, like, "I don't know if I feel like it" thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, but I like what you're saying about how it's pre-indicated. Like you recognize, "Hey, sometimes I get depressed," or like, "Hey, sometimes I get anxious," or sometimes like my dog needs to go to the vet or whatever. You're not saying that you are blind to life happening and that you need to be agile. What you're saying is that on a normal day, 99% of the time, I'm
Right.
going to do the writing. So what does it actually look like though for you? Are you at a desk? Are you at a cafe? Like, what's your favorite writing setup?
So I love cafes because I love being out of my house. I can't do anything at home. I can't get a package in the mail and then be like, "Oh, I need to try this on before you
Yeah.
know, I can't nothing can happen to me in a cafe. Like I can't take a nap. I can't whatever. And so I loved cafes and then the pandemic hit and I mean, I quite literally never used to work at home.
Mhm.
I had a desk at home and it was my boyfriend works from home too, and it was like his desk, and we both
Mhm.
had room at it, but I was like, "I never use this." So I
Wait, wait, wait. Say one desk?
We had
Same
one
desk?
huge desk that, like, could both of us could fit at it. It was a huge desk, but I never used it. Like, I never used it.
Okay. But I realize that may not work most of the time, but that is awfully romantic that you share a desk with your boo.
No, now we share we moved and now we have a
Hmm.
huge dining room. And we did not want a huge dining room, like, we don't usually eat our meals there, but we have this huge dining room,
Uh-huh.
and we have a table that can seat 8 people that is small in this dining room for some reason, like, the people who built this house love dining, I guess. So, now
Yeah.
we have this massive table, and now we both work there a lot because again, with the pandemic, it just wasn't we I couldn't go to a cafe, so I had to retrain myself, and that was, like, a huge, that was really hard for me because I was such
Mhm.
a person that I told people in classes and online, if someone asked me for writing advice, I always told everyone, "Find the routine that works for you and just figure it out, whatever it is for you. If you're a morning person, night person, wherever you need to write, go do it." And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden that blew up. Like, I couldn't go to the cafe. I couldn't do it, and so I just had to retrain myself to be like again, it's one of those things where it's like, you don't have an option, either your articles due or you need to get this done. Like, it was kind of just like, "All right, we're doing
Yeah.
it," you know?
Yeah.
So, normally I like a cafe. If I can be at a cafe, that's my ideal.
Awesome. And you were talking about, some people are great in the morning, others prefer night work. What's your best time of day? Do you have like a snack and a water out? Just tell me a little bit more about your whole setup.
So I am a huge coffee person, but I drink
Okay.
coffee like a baby. Like, I love lattes and, like,
Yes.
I have, like, the stevia, the oat milk. I'm a baby. So I always have coffee, and I usually if I go to a cafe, I get a coffee and a pastry, and to me, I'm like, "That's worth the price of how much work I'm gonna get done." And I read an article once
Mhm.
that has really stuck with me that says that most people have about 4 hours of true productivity in them a day. And they're
Ooh.
like, you can do other things, but if you're talking about, like, high performance productivity of, like,
Mhm.
I'm doing a difficult task, not like I'm vacuuming the rug, you only get about 4 hours of that a day. And it might be broken up, like, you could take 6 hours to write and have 4. So, I try to not beat myself up, I guess, when I get to the end of that. So I go to a cafe usually whenever I wake up. I don't rush because I have the luxury of not rushing right now.
Yeah.
And so I go usually around like 9 or 10. I sit there and I write. And then when I realize that I'm just kind of messing around on the internet and looking at, oh, I need to go like read an article about the best like new skincare products. I'm like, maybe you're not writing anymore. So I try to like run out the clock a little bit of like, I try to like write, and really push my productivity in the morning.
Mhm.
And then when I get to that, like, kinda afternoon slump, instead of sitting there and teaching myself that, like, writing is about, messing around on the internet and sitting around and waiting,
Yeah.
instead of doing
Yeah.
that, I get up and I leave because 'cause I'm like, "I don't wanna connect this with writing," I don't wanna feel like
Yeah.
part of writing is online shopping, and I'm not perfect at it. I online shop and, read dumb articles all the time. But when I'm really, like, not getting any more done, that's when I'm like, "Okay, we gotta go." Because I don't wanna train myself that, like, writing time is about dicking around on the internet, I want it to be, like,
Yeah.
productive.
Absolutely. And I like the differentiation that you're making between, okay, it's one thing to say, like, okay, I'm going to have a 5-minute break and I'm going to read this article and then I'm going to get back to it. It's another thing to just, it happens to you and you're not in control and suddenly you're scrolling who knows what. So
Ye
I like that. Like, if it's an intentional break, fine. But if you are just stuck in the abyss, just leave. It's over. Like,
Yes,
we're
it's
done.
over.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes your brain is fried, and that's okay, like, that's again, you get to the
Yeah.
end, and, like, sometimes I'm sure for everyone, for whatever their job is, sometimes your job isn't the only productive thing you have to do in a day. Sometimes when you go
Mhm.
home, it's not like, "Oh, it's just a vacuuming a carpet mindless thing." Sometimes it's like, I have to, like, meal prep for the week, or I have to, like, have this big discussion with a person that's gonna be really hard or difficult, or sometimes,
Totally.
like, there's so many other parts of your life too. So, like, sometimes your brain has to save energy or time or space for another thing that is important that isn't work, you know? So,
Yeah.
it doesn't your productivity doesn't have to all be like sit down, write, make money or whatever it is, like there's all kinds of productive parts of life, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so to that point, we understand how you do your work, but we also know that what is going on in the rest of our lives informs how our productivity looks and how we feel while we're doing the work, or just, how we're feeling as we're carrying out other aspects of our life and our relationships and or hobbies or whatever. What do you do that is fun that just helps you feel good about the life you live outside of writing? Do you have any hobbies? Like any
I
favorite activities?
do. My one of my favorite things to do is I love romance novels, and I genuinely will just like at the end of a day, I will just turn off and be like, it is time to just read a book where I know what's gonna happen, like it's nice, it's fluffy, it's fun. I love
Mhm.
romance novels. I read so many each year. So that's like a huge hobby of mine. I do secondhand shop a lot. I try to not buy new things is like a huge thing that I try to do. I try to not
Yeah.
buy new clothes, I should say. Because I'm love shopping, but it's not a sustainable habit, so those are things I love, but I my house is kind of the house where a lot of friends come over. So I love
Mhm.
like having people over and making a nice meal and just having like a big spread for everybody of like, here's some things I made and cooked and stuff. So those are like genuinely the nicest times for me is just having friends over, have
Mhm.
a nice meal, have a glass of wine, watch The Bachelor. I love The Bachelor, you know.
Oh, same. Yes. Did you see the finale this week?
Yes, I know, yes. I love shows that are just like again, if you're gonna be productive all day, I cannot speak highly enough about things that are just pure fun to watch or do or, like, read, you know? It
Yeah.
I love Bachelor, I love it.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I love that. And also, just to kind of inform people how we got connected, because you mentioned people are at your house a lot. One of these people is someone I know. My sister-in-law, Mia,
Yeah.
is a good friend of yours, right?
Yes, we met, oddly enough, through Twitter and through my boyfriend who knew her from Twitter, and now we've been friends, like, 6 years now or something, or 5 years. It's crazy. Like it seems so odd to have, like, friends from the internet as an adult, but it's true. She's the best, and
Yeah,
she cooks the best food in the world, so if you ever have the chance to eat Mia's food, best. She's such a good cook.
absolutely. I was just talking to her last time she was in town about like, could you please give me some cooking lessons? Because I can follow a recipe, but I wouldn't consider myself all that talented. But she really is. So, anyway, so she was telling me about you and about your book, and that's how I got to know about it and how I ended up reading it. But then once I found out about it and shared with people that, oh gosh, I read this book, I really loved it, it felt like everyone else had already read it. But gosh, like if you haven't, you need to. Again, this is exhausting and it just came out this summer and it is super duper funny. All right, let's move into a couple of fun segments. Let's do a little round of this or that. So, I'm going to ask you about two different things, and you pick which is your favorite or which direction you would go.
I'm so excited.
Okay, read a book or listen to a playlist.
Read a book, I have to say.
Keep your style classic or let your style evolve.
Mm. Oh, this is so hard. I guess let my style evolve. Yeah, let my style evolve.
Yes. Okay. Go on an adventure or stay in and relax.
Oh, I would say probably my answer would be different if it hadn't been for the last couple years, but I would say go on an adventure at this point. I'm ready. I'm ready to do something new.
Yes, amen. Like, get us out of here. Help. Okay. Rewatch favorites or search for a new show.
New show. I am not a rewatcher. Like I don't there's like no shows I've rewatched. I can't. I have to have new stuff.
Yes. Okay. Flats or heels.
Heels. I like heeled like boots and stuff. I don't like thin heels because I can't walk in those, but I am not a flats person.
Oh yeah. Gosh, if you've ever ended up with heels in the grass, then you
Yeah,
should
you can't do
know.
that.
It's quite the challenge. Okay. More the merrier or more fun with fewer?
Um, okay, this one's gonna be a little bit of a cop out, but I am the person who I think it's actually more fun with fewer people almost always. Like
Mhm.
I like fewer people in a group, but I also cannot help myself but invite everyone to everything all the time. So I'm the person who's like, I'm having a dinner with 2 people and then it ends up being 8 people because I invite everyone. So I think I'm accidentally a more the merrier person. I just love including everyone, being like, yeah, come on over. So,
Oh, I love that. Honestly, like, that's the impression that I got reading your book. Like, you're not
oh,
gonna leave someone out.
it is like heartbreaking to me to imagine leaving someone out. So I'm like, yes, just come in, you know?
Yeah,
So more the merrier, I guess.
we like it. Okay. Cleaning is my love language or cleaning is my nightmare?
Oh, I'm I guess cleaning is my nightmare, I guess. I like things clean, but I don't like being the one to do it.
Yeah,
So,
that's fair. Um, here for humor or please be serious?
oh, here for humor, absolutely.
I think we knew that one, right?
Yeah,
Because
you need to know that one
hello,
from the book.
Sophia's a comedian. Yes. Okay. All right. On to the next segment. It's called Rapid Fire, and it's just 4 quick questions. Let's
Okay.
see if you have some fun answers for us. So, can you name a recent read that you've enjoyed?
Oh, Sally Rooney's Beautiful World, Where Are You? I'm in the middle of it, so that's kind of a cheat, but it's really good, and all of her books are great. Sally Rooney's books are amazing.
Yes. Okay. What about a recent show?
Oh, Sex Education. I just watched the 3rd season. That show is so good. It does such a good job of taking characters that you think you hate, and then, like, a couple episodes later, you learn more about them, and you're like, "I love this person, and they're so sweet, and they're my, like, angel. I love them." So, Sex Education, so funny, so good.
Yes, I could totally see you writing a show like this.
Oh my god, I would love to write a show that good. It's so good. I love that show.
Yes, like producers, pay attention. This is what you need to do. Okay, what's something that's like a favorite right now? Maybe it's something that you've bought that you really like using or, something that you would recommend to a friend.
This is so nerdy of me, but I bought an around the neck reading light that literally just, like, sits
Oh,
here and because I don't have like, a light next to my bed right now,
yeah.
and I thought it was gonna be like, "Oh, I only use it occasionally," but the other day I need to go get something from the back of my closet, and I couldn't see, and I just put it on, and it worked perfectly, and I was like, "This is kind of great to just have a light that's, like, on I don't have to, like, hold my phone." So, an around the neck reading light is my big suggestion.
Oh my
So
goodness, that is so funny. And also, I bet this boyfriend appreciates your around the neck reading light in the evening hours.
yes, instead of me having the, like, full lights on to read to.
Yeah. I think I need to personally look into this. Okay, wait. One final bonus round question. What's your amp song?
Oh, I oh my gosh. Okay, so I would say Silver Springs by Fleetwood Mac, and it's Stevie Nicks wrote it after she broke up with Lindsey Buckingham, and the song is like their relationship was really bad, and she was like, I could have loved you really well and you didn't let me. And then she sings this like great song about like, um, you're never going to forget me and you'll always remember my voice and it will haunt you forever that I was like such a great partner and you will always have lost me kind of thing. And I don't even have someone I feel that way about like at all, but it's so like she has so much power behind her of like you will never forget me and like you had me and you just like didn't I don't know, you, like, messed it up kind of, and
Yeah.
it's like this, like, breakup anthem, and again, I'm not breaking up with anyone, I don't have anyone I'm, like, in that mindset with, but I love that song because it just feels like, again, that, like, empowerment of, like, I know my worth and I was, like, good, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so we're all gonna go jump on Spotify and add it to our personal playlists.
It's a
Thank you
great
so much. That is a fun one. And thank you so much for just coming and hanging out today. And I hope
Thank
we get to
you.
talk to you again soon. You're fun to hang out with.
This was so much fun. I've been like smiling the whole time. I feel like my cheeks hurt because it was such a fun time and I just was like smiling. Thank you so much.
If you haven't read it already, don't forget to pick up your copy of Sophia's memoir, Well, This Is Exhausting. And if you want to keep in touch with Sophia, she is prolific and endlessly entertaining in 280 characters or less over on Twitter. Her handle is at one follower, no dad. That is the number one follower, no dad. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed your time with us today, please share this episode with a friend, then subscribe, follow, leave a comment, or give a 5-star review. Season 1 of the show will include more chats with top authors, experts, and influential personalities. We will be serving up simplified, applied psychology, habit theory, and quality of life tips and tricks that you can put into action right away. Until next week, I'm Kate Hammer, and you know how to live.